Are you ready? You think you could tell us what to do? You think you could tell us what to wear? You think that you're better? Well, you better get ready. Bow to the masters. Break it down!
Hi, welcome to the Detroit Lions Talk Podcast, off-season edition, your Detroit Lions information center for everything happening Detroit Lions football. Today, we're going to be talking NFL Draft Week. Why? Because it's draft month. It's one day before the draft. The show is coming out just a little late, has some things going on, some unforeseen incidents happened, and we're unable to get the show out Monday like we'd hoped, but we're here with you guys today to give you guys the last 6 picks for the Detroit Lions heading into tomorrow's draft, the way we believe the Detroit Lions should draft in the 2016 NFL Draft. Bob Quinn's first draft as general manager of the Detroit Lions. First, we'd like to thank everybody for joining the show. We'd like to thank everybody who's subscribed to our show, who's sent the show on to friends, who sent it to family, Lions fans, wherever, however, whether you're listening to it, mowing your yard, going to work, at work, however you listen, however you've been sending out our information on our show, we really appreciate it. We've had great responses. Our podcast, the numbers have blown up. We appreciate it. We credit all that to you guys, the fans. So thank you, and please keep retweeting the show, keep sending it out to all your friends and family and Lions fans, and keep listening. And when you do listen, whether it's on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, whichever one it is, please subscribe and give us a rating. That way, our show will come up as the Detroit Lions show on whatever format you listen on. So please give us a rating, whatever it is, good, bad, you hate it, you love it, whatever it is, please give us a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. And if you want to follow the show, you can find us on Vine, Instagram, and Twitter, mainly at STR Lions Talk, as usual. Every way we have the show out to you guys, it's at STR Lions Talk Podcast. We really appreciate everything you've done, and thank you, everybody. So let's get into it. The NFL Draft. We did our first 4 rounds last week of our 4.0 mock draft for the Detroit Lions. And to review those, we selected with the 16th pick, Jason Spriggs, offensive tackle, Indiana. Only if the Lions are able to trade back. If they're not able to trade back, we'd like the Lions to take Sheldon Rankins with the 16th pick, if he's available. Now, the only thing that trumps either one of those picks is if Ezekiel Elliott slips to the Detroit Lions at 16. I don't believe he will, but he's the only player that trumps everything. If Ezekiel Elliott falls to the Detroit Lions at 16, you run to the podium. I believe he's going to be drafted by Dallas. I don't believe he'll make it out of the top 10. Ezekiel Elliott, that is, so we don't have to worry about it. But the pick we like for the Detroit Lions is the Detroit Lions trading back, acquiring picks in this draft and next year's draft, and acquiring Jason Spriggs, offensive tackle, Indiana, with the first-round pick. Moving on to the second round, we like Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State. Now, forever we've talked about the Detroit Lions drafting the strength of this draft, and we believe the defensive line and front 7 personnel is the strength of this draft. As we said on numerous shows, we believe that is the strength of this draft, and we believe the Detroit Lions are in a prime spot to fill a lot of needs in this draft, building this defense and team forward with high-value players in a pivotal position on the field defensively for the Detroit Lions, in an area of need for the Detroit Lions. But with the depth of this draft and a player like Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State, being available in the second round, barring some unforeseen instance, I believe Chris Jones will be the pick for the Detroit Lions in round 2, and that's tremendous value. Both Jason Spriggs and or Sheldon Rankins in round 1 and tied him together with Chris Jones in round 2 all of these players give the Lions versatility. Something we've harped on for many shows is versatility. Versatility is going to be a key component when the Lions consider drafting guys now in the NFL draft. We believe this is going to be a key selling point and a key deciding factor if there's a tie between two players. How versatile is this player? And Chris Jones allows the Detroit Lions a lot of versatility on the defensive line. And I believe that will be the pick for the Detroit Lions in round 2. Round 3, we've projected another defensive player to the Detroit Lions as the compensation pick for Ndamukong Suh, the 95th pick overall, and a player we have moved up our draft board considerably week after week after week, and mock draft after mock draft after mock draft, is Sean Davis, safety/cornerback out of Maryland. A few things we like about Sean Davis is his intelligence, his ability to play special teams, and again, his versatility. His versatility to play safety, his versatility to play the inside guy in the slot and the outside guy out on the edge. He can play the strong side of the field, the weak side of the field. He can guard the tight end. He's a physical player, can come up and play the run. A lot of different tools in his toolbox, and a lot of different tools that Terrell Austin can use in building this defense and coming up with creative ways to be devastating week after week defensively for the Detroit Lions. Sean Davis gives the Detroit Lions those options to become a really hard defense to scheme for, and a defense that's versatile enough they can make changes at halftime. They can adjust to what teams are doing on the fly better with a player with Sean Davis's caliber. And I believe with the Randy Edsall connection, I believe Sean Davis will be a player the Detroit Lions will be targeting in the draft. In round 3 with a compensation pick for Suh would be an ideal position to grab a player of Sean Davis's versatility and intelligence and ability to tackle, play the run, play in the box, and you can play that hybrid safety position that's become so valuable, that Deion Buchanan type of position that's become so valuable in the NFL. He's a bigger guy that can play a smaller style linebacker while still having the ability to cover a multitude of wide receivers, tight ends, running backs out of the backfield. There's so many things you can do with a player of Sean Davis's caliber. That's why we like him in round 3 for the Detroit Lions going forward. Another player we like out of the University of Maryland is Yannick Ngakoue, a defensive end / outside linebacker. Again, versatility. This is going to be the common theme for us, is versatility. And we believe Yannick Ngakoue gives the Lions that versatility. Another Randy Edsall guy. Randy Edsall has been hired by the Detroit Lions as their special projects and research guy. And I believe having that connection and having that relationship there, he will have the best information for the Detroit Lions, and getting a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, a position of need for the Detroit Lions. And again, I believe the Detroit Lions are going to be defensive oriented per opponent. They're not going to have a specific scheme or a base. Their defense is going to be adjusted week to week, quarter to quarter, half to half, depending on the opponent, what the opponent's doing to them, and what works best against that opponent per week, whether a run-heavy team, pass-heavy team, whichever it is, whatever they don't do well, we're going to take away, whatever they do well, we're going to take away and make them do the things they don't do well. So a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, defensive end / outside linebacker for University of Maryland, gives the Detroit Lions that option. He can play with his hand in the dirt. He can play standing up. He plays well in space. He can cover tight ends. And he can be used in a variety of different defensive schemes, whether it's zone, man, whatever you need him to do, 3-4-4-3, odd man, even mans. It doesn't matter what it is. He offers the Lions that versatility. Especially in round 4, the value is extremely high, and we believe that's why Yannick Ngakoue will be the 4th-round pick for the Detroit Lions. Now, those were our first 4 picks we covered last week for you guys. And this week, we're going to give you the other 6. And starting it right off, getting right into it, is a player we love, a player we fell in love with at the Combine, a player that gives the Lions, again, a lot of versatility and a lot of options. He can do a lot of different things very well, but also can add depth to a position that's become so vital in the NFL. And the player is Cyrus Jones, cornerback out of Alabama. He's a player we fell in love with during the draft process. He was a player at Alabama and that excelled on special teams, excelled at the cornerback position. And it was hard for me to say that I like Cyrus Jones because I am not a huge fan of Alabama cornerbacks. They haven't really produced very well in the NFL. There seemed to be more hype than production when they get to the NFL due to the fact that Alabama is such a juggernaut in college football, and Nick Saban has that defense tuned up every week, scheme-wise, to take away what the opponent does really well and making them do things the things they do poorly over and over again, and putting great players in position to make plays. And make no mistake about it, Cyrus Jones is a great player out of the University of Alabama. His special teams capabilities are phenomenal. They alone, his special teams capabilities alone, could get him drafted in round 5 or round 4 because of the versatility. He's the most explosive special teams punt returner, kick returner in college football last year. He was a big play waiting to happen all the time when the ball was in his hands. And he was equally that as talented on the defensive side of the ball at the cornerback position. He showed out game after game. He's one of the best cornerbacks I've seen come out of Alabama. He's better than Kirkpatrick. He's better than D. Milner. He's better than all those guys, and he gives the Lions a lot of versatility because he gives the Lions versatility in the sense that he can play the nickel, he can play in dime defense, he can play in man coverage, he can play in zone. He's better in man than zone. He kind of gets lost in space at times, but his punt return ability, kick return ability, his ability to play special teams and return game is a great value for the Detroit Lions and a great option for the Detroit Lions going forward in the future in a position that's become so vital with teams running a lot of nickel-based defenses. I believe 60% of all teams run a nickel-based package throughout the game after game. And that's huge due to the fact that the bubble screen, quick passes, the screen game has become so effective in the NFL and the no-huddle offense. This has made defenses adjust to the offenses, which has resulted in defenses playing more nickel dime defenses consistently and being creative in the ways they blitz, being creative in the way they use these players that are maybe a little bit bigger, able to tackle better, able to cover in small spaces for a small or short amount of time. And Cyrus Jones gives you that. Amazing quickness, great versatility, great ball skills. He brings a lot of things the Detroit Lions are looking for. And again, the connection with the Detroit Lions and Nick Saban having a past with Bill Belichick kind of brings it all together with Bob Quinn. I'm sure he has a relationship with Nick Saban. And I don't think the Lions could go wrong by drafting Cyrus Jones with the first pick in the 5th round. Remember, we have 2 picks in the 5th round, 3 in the 6th. So with one of our 5th round picks, we'd like to see the Detroit Lions shore up that defense, become a juggernaut on defense, because what wins in the NFL? Defense. What travels really well? Defense. What can give you a consistent effort week after week when the offense may be struggling or maybe not in their rhythm or unable to get anything going against another dominant defense? What solves a lot of those problems and makes up for a lot of those mistakes that an offense can put the team in is a defense, a strong defense. We saw what happened in 2014, and we saw what happened in 2015 when the defense wasn't so good. So shoring up that defense, playing more 6 cornerbacks at a time, playing more dime defense, whatever it's going to take, the Detroit Lions are going to do defensively. Like we talked about, it's going to be scheme diverse per opponent. It's going to be scheme diverse per half, per quarter, depending on what teams are trying to do against us. Now, that gives us a lot of options and flexibility, getting guys like Sean Davis, getting guys like Chris Jones, getting guys like Cyrus Jones, getting guys like that. Give the Lions a lot of versatility to move people around where people aren't just segmented into one specific role. And if that guy gets hurt, if that guy's injured, if whatever happens, you have the option to make up for those mistakes by getting guys like Cyrus Jones who can play those positions. So Cyrus Jones with the fifth round pick, the first fifth round pick, would be a huge get for the Detroit Lions. Now, with the second fifth round pick, the 169th pick of the NFL draft, we like the Lions to select a hometown guy, Matt Judon, defensive end, Grand Valley State. This guy is a complete animal. He never stops. His motor is go, 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 go. And I think this is a great position to take a player from a smaller school, which I'm not a huge fan of, but my only rule is if you're the small school guy, then dominate week after week, play after play, time and time again. And this is what Matt Judon has done. He's a bulldozer, a bulldog attitude, nonstop motor, great hand technique, movement is off the charts, good lateral movement, tackles, and with bad intentions. Besides being the great story and being a Michigan boy and getting drafted by the Detroit Lions, how great that would be. And what a great decision for the Detroit Lions' future, having a guy like Matt Judon to develop alongside Ezekiel Ansah. And again, we've wrote an article about this. It was on Twitter. You can find it on our likes page. There's not a 100% guarantee with Ezekiel Ansah's age that the Detroit Lions will re-sign him to big money. They may exercise the fifth-year option for next year, but Ezekiel Ansah will be 29 when all this happens. And usually the Patriot way is around that age you get traded or you get cut. And that could possibly happen with even someone as talented as Ezekiel Ansah. Bob Quinn only wants those guys around for their best years. You can have the other years when the talent is starting to decline. He wants the peak years. And having a guy like Matt Judon come in and learn for 2 seasons under Ezekiel Ansah, develop more strength, more technique, and become more acclimated with NFL-style defenses and being able to decipher NFL offenses and what people are trying to do to him would be huge for the Detroit Lions. And getting a player of Matt Judon's quality would be just a great get this late in the draft and great value. Again, offers versatility. Yannick Ngakoue can play with his hand in the dirt, but he can also play outside. You can start moving the pieces around with Chris Jones. Ezekiel Ansah could stand up. Matt Judon gives you the option to stand him up at times and possibly play coverage. Just the flexibility, the versatility, it's all there with all of these picks. And it starts to make your head swim on the potential of the Detroit Lions defense by getting these guys, Cyrus Jones, Sean Davis, Chris Jones, Yannick Ngakoue, Matt Judon. Start thinking about it and start thinking about the players we have signed this last year, a lot of 1- and 2-year deals. Nada's probably only good for 1 more year. We're not sure about Walker. 1-year deal also. He has to come back off that broken leg, which he looks good, he looks healthy, but can he be productive? That's all that matters. I don't care what he looks like running down the stairs. I don't care what he looks like running shuttle drills. What I care is his productivity on the field. Tyron Walker showed that last year before the broken leg. Can he repeat it? So those are the things we're looking at. We're looking at this in the future and taking advantage of the skill players and the talent in this draft. And I think we've done a pretty good job at utilizing that. So Matt Judon, defensive end, Grand Valley State, 5th round, pick 169. That's who we like for the Detroit Lions. Moving on to round 6, where the Detroit Lions hold 3 draft choices, another hometown guy, a position of need for the Detroit Lions, and a position we believe the Detroit Lions are going to start utilizing more often under Bob Quinn and new offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter. The way the league's going, the way the Patriots have played in the past, We believe this guy is going to be a huge, huge asset and a very good weapon in the NFL. The only problem is he has to go to the right team. And I believe the right team for him is the Detroit Lions. And that would be Daniel Braverman, Western Michigan. I couldn't get it out of my head. We were able to attend the Michigan State Pro Day this year, thanks to NFL Draft Bible. If you haven't checked them out before, check them out. We do some work for them sometimes, and it's an incredible site. They do a great job, tons of information. You can't get much better than NFL Draft Bible, so check them out. But going to those pro days this year by working with NFL Draft Bible allowed us to get a lot of insider information we were unable to obtain or find in years past. So we were listening to a conversation indirectly, kind of spying in on a Lion scout, and he was raving about Daniel Braverman because the day before the Michigan State Pro Day was the Western Michigan Pro Day. We didn't get our credential information in fast enough. We were unable to attend. I was hoping I'd be able to attend that one just to see Daniel Braverman. That's the only reason I really wanted to go, was to see him. And the scout couldn't have been more pleased. He talked about how fast he was in person. He was quicker than he thought, faster than he thought, moved better laterally than he thought, better hands, ran real crisp routes. They were just blown away by his overall skill set and what he was able to do in person compared to what he showed on tape, which what he showed on tape was phenomenal. Had a huge year, and he had the good games against some of the best teams. When he played against Ohio State, he had 10 receptions, 129 or 23 yards, 1 touchdown. Played Michigan State, 13 receptions, 109 yards, dropped 2 touchdown passes during that game. It was a rainy day. Still, no excuses, should have caught those balls. Braverman is the Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman type receiver, Wes Welker, that has worked so well for the New England Patriots. He's a third down machine. He will pick that third down up. He's great after the catch. Amazing hands, great route runner, more quick than fast, but he's still fast enough to beat people over the middle and down the seam. He ran a 4.47 at his pro day, which is very good. He's not a big hulking Calvin Johnson type receiver. Now he's a short, like I said, exactly, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola type receiver. But there's a role for him. There's a spot for him. We have Jeremy Curley, great. Another one-year deal guy. We need to think about the future going forward. The Detroit Lions core of this team will be built in the draft. That's how the Detroit Lions are going to be built now. It's not going to be through free agency anymore. You're going to see our free agency just like this. The only time we're going to add pieces is when we're close, just like the New England Patriots do. They've added Rodney Harrison, Corey Dillon, guys like that throughout the years when, Darrelle Revis, Brandon Browner, guys like that, when they thought they were close, they went and spent the money. They always have money. They're never in cap trouble. That's how we're going to be. We're not in cap trouble. I think we still have like $17 million of cap money to spend. But why haven't we spent it? Who knows who's going to get cut when camp starts? The Detroit Lions are being very frugal with their money and being very responsible. They're building a real team with real depth, so the injuries aren't so devastating. But also, Bob Quinn is not married to any of these players. He is going to build a core of players, as the New England Patriots have, that are his guys. Now, it's probably going to be about 12 guys. The rest of them, all expendable. No matter how great they've been, what they've done, no matter what it is, they're all going to be expendable. And I'm thinking guys like Daniel Braverman, Sean Davis, some of his first draft class guys are going to be some of his babies, because that first draft class is going to always be the one you're measured by going forward. It's going to be the start of something, and getting a guy of Daniel Braverman's versatility, again, being able to play in the slot, being able to play outside, inside, being able to run routes over the middle, being able to run go routes, being able to run crossing routes, being able to run short intermediate routes, being able to pick up third downs consistently, being able to beat linebackers, being able to have the ability to use leverage against safeties, being able to use leverage against cornerbacks, understanding how to get open is going to be key in the Jim Bob Cooter offense and for the Detroit Lions. That's why we like Daniel Braverman with the first pick in the 6th round. Of the 3 the Detroit Lions have in the 6th round, we'd like to see them take Daniel Braverman with pick 191 in the 6th round. Be a great pick. It'd be a great group for the Detroit Lions, and what a draft that would be. Just start picturing it, how it could go. Now, some of these guys could be there, some might. We think we have projected these target guys responsibly. We haven't reached and, oh, yeah, we'll get this guy in the 6th round and this guy in the 7th round that are second-round picks. Now, could Chris Jones go in round 1? Sure could. Could Sean Davis go in round 2? Sure could. It just depends on how the draft goes. But I believe we've been real responsible and done our homework on where we think these guys are slotted, and I think we've done a good job on selecting their draft position. I don't think we're going to be that far off. Last year, every pick we projected was available, in the year before also. And someone like Jeremy Langford was available, and that's a player we really loved last year. And look what he's done for the Bears, and he was there at the Detroit Lions draft position in the 4th round, and the Detroit Lions didn't select him, which kind of bummed me out. Now we're looking for a running back. But the Detroit Lions need they have not drafted in 7 years, a player in a position that has been just kind of nil and void since the acquisition of Matthew Stafford 7 years ago, is quarterback. Yes, the Detroit Lions have another record. They have not selected a quarterback in 7 years, which is an NFL record. And I think this is the year they do it. But I do not want the Detroit Lions, unless someone like Connor Cook slips into the 2nd round and they decide to take a flyer on him, which I wouldn't hate, but I wouldn't love. I'd probably be 50-50 on it, and I'd understand the selection because Bob Quinn has come out and said it's good business to draft a quarterback every year, and I believe it is. You've seen the New England Patriots draft Ryan Mallett, Garoppolo, guys like that over the years, and they have Tom Brady. Now, we have Matthew Stafford, who is not Tom Brady, but we have a franchised quarterback. Like it or not, he is. Teams would drool and throw more money than you could ever imagine at him if he hit the market, Matthew Stafford, that is. But we believe the Detroit Lions, this late in the draft, with one of their 3 6th-round picks, would be a perfect spot to draft a developmental quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And this whole time, we've always said we'd like to see the Detroit Lions draft a quarterback completely opposite of Matthew Stafford. We'd like to see them draft a more mobile, running-style quarterback that can make plays with his legs. Why is that? If Matthew Stafford goes out and the backup comes in, I don't think you want a Matthew Stafford clone. I think you want a guy that can make some plays and make some things happen, like a Tyrod Taylor-type quarterback that wants to dominate more in the pocket than run, but also has that escapability to get out of some bad plays and some bad situations with his legs. And I believe the player we have selected for the Detroit Lions in round 6, the 2nd pick of the Detroit Lions in the 2nd round, the 202nd pick overall, is Trayvon Boykin, quarterback, TCU. We believe that's going to be a huge upgrade at the backup position for the Detroit Lions. Remember, we have Dan Orlovsky. We're not married to Dan Orlovsky, but we did re-sign Dan Orlovsky. The contract is null and void. It doesn't have any restrictions on it or cap hits. So cutting a guy like Dan Orlovsky would not be a problem if the Lions were able to draft a Trayvon Boykin in the 6th round. Now, whoever the quarterback is, they draft an Adams or a Boykin or whoever it is, I believe he's going to be a third string quarterback. I believe the Lions are going to carry 3 quarterbacks this year, only for the fact to give him a chance to develop, because Boykin does need some development. He was a receiver in college, shows a ton of athletic ability, which again gives the Lions options. You could use him in special plays. As we know, the New England Patriots are notorious for coming up with special plays on offense, whether it's throwing to tackles, whether it's throwing to linebackers when Mike Vrabel was there, whether it's throwing wide receiver screens, whether it's throwing over the middle to a guy like Wes Welker 300,000 times a year, whether it's letting the wide receivers throw touchdown passes in NFC Championship games, whether it's making tackles eligible and tight ends ineligible and confusing defenses. Whatever it is, they always seem to have a few things that you're not prepared for. And Trayvon Boykin could be a slash Cordell Stewart for some of you older guys type of player that gives the Detroit Lions an option in certain situations to put him in the game and be creative on the goal line in certain situations, big moments in games where teams are a little bit stressed and not thinking. Having a guy like Trayvon Boykin in there doing things like that, why he develops to become our backup quarterback. I do not see Trevone Boykin ever becoming our quarterback of the future, but we're looking for a backup. We're not looking for the quarterback of the future. The quarterback of the future for the Detroit Lions is Matthew Stafford. Plain and simple, that's the way it is, like it or not, he's the guy. If he decides to come back to the Detroit Lions in the next few years, he is going to be the future of the Detroit Lions, Matthew Stafford, that is. But being able to obtain a guy like Trevone Boykin, who has so much versatility, I love his game. He's highly productive in college. He had a few bonehead moves of drinking and driving and just kind of some bonehead kid stuff, but it doesn't seem to affect him. It seems he has moved on from that. He's more in the RG3 type role. I love his arm talent. It's phenomenal. He's able to do a multitude of things with his arm. And also being able to extend plays with his legs is huge. He can make every throw you want. He ran a very high-paced zone read type of offense at TCU. It was a more Baylor type of system, which I'm not a huge fan of. But remember, we're not asking Trevone Boykin to come in and be our starting quarterback. We're asking him to come in and more than likely be our third-string quarterback and learn and become a solid backup quarterback, just like Tyrod Taylor is. And he has that potential to develop like Tyrod Taylor. His game is very similar to Tyrod Taylor's. And having a player like that backing up Matthew Stafford, if the worst were to happen and Matthew Stafford was injured for 5, 6, 7 games, having a guy like Trevone Boykin in there would be huge for the Detroit Lions going forward. It would allow the Lions a lot of versatility. It would allow the Lions a lot of breathing room at the quarterback position. And trust me, he's better than Dan Orlovsky right now. So our pick for the Detroit Lions in round 6, the 202nd pick overall, the second pick of the Detroit Lions in the 6th round, is Trevone Boykin, quarterback, TCU. With our last pick in the 6th round for the Detroit Lions, another position of need as we see it for the Detroit Lions is tight end. It's a position, I don't know where Brandon Pettigrew is going to be with the Detroit Lions this spring. I think it's going to be a total tryout for him. I believe it's going to be an up-in-the-air decision. I believe the Lions are 50-50 on him. While he offers a ton of blocking ability, he showed some promise early on as a receiving tight end. It seems like all of that is kind of dissipated over the last year, whether it's injury concerns, his ability not being able to catch the ball consistently, whatever it is, it just doesn't seem to be working out anymore. One of Martin Mayhew's first draft choices as GM of the Detroit Lions seems to be kind of hitting that wall in his career where he is not productive anymore, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is no longer with the Detroit Lions at the end of training camp. So that's why we have projected a guy that basically plays the tight end position but doesn't play it in the same manner Brandon Pettigrew played it. We have projected to the Detroit Lions with the 6th round pick, the 210th pick overall, the third of the Detroit Lions' 3 6th round picks, Kyle Carter, tight end, Penn State. I like his versatility, He's not the devastating blocker that Pettigrew is by any means. I'm not even going to try to say he's a good blocker. He needs to work a lot on his blocking. But his pass-catching ability is phenomenal. He looks like a poor man's Rob Gronkowski. He looks like Jordan Reed. A guy like that running over the middle. That's how he portrays himself. He lined up a lot in the slot. He didn't line up so much in line at Penn State, lined up more on the slot position. And when he'd get a matchup that Penn State liked, whether it was a linebacker just like the New England Patriots did with Rob Gronkowski in the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks, when they get that matchup, they throw deep to him during those opportunities. And I believe that would be a huge option for the Detroit Lions to get a guy like Kyle Carter and a guy of his ability and his ability to high point balls. He's a big guy, 6'6", 245 pounds. He's a more athletic and better option, like a Joseph Fourier, but he's a more physical Joseph Fourier, not so finesse. And his ability to catch the ball over the middle of the field is what drew me to him And I think he was underutilized in that poor Penn State offense, whether it was the Christian Hackenberg, whether it was the offensive line, whether it was the head coach, whatever it is going on there. He is a player that showed so much promise early on, and another player like Hackenberg that fell off the map. Now, does he have the ability to get that back? Maybe, and I believe he does for the sake of the Detroit Lions. I think that would be a huge value pick here and fills another position of need for the Detroit Lions. It's something we've always kind of been looking for after kind of the Brandon Pettigrew flavor wore off, and people have always been looking for that. And Eric Ebron, while showing promise last year and showing more upside, hasn't really lived up to the potential and the promise we had hoped he would bring to Detroit when we drafted him 10th overall. So getting a guy like Kyle Carter would be huge for the Detroit Lions. I think it would be a great pick. He, like I said, he has a lot of versatility. Needs to work on being more of an inline tight end at times, but he can play the slot. Again, another third down option for Matthew Stafford. Remember, Calvin Johnson's gone, where I believe this is going to help the Lions. I've said this 1,000 times. I think sometimes Calvin Johnson actually hurt the Lions by teams automatically taking away one of Matthew Stafford's options. And as Matthew Stafford said in an article earlier this week, and I cannot remember who wrote the article to give them credit for, sometimes it's hard to watch tape and see what teams are doing, watching other opponents, when you don't have a Calvin Johnson on that side, and they start doing different things to take away Calvin Johnson than they're doing to other teams week after week after week. And I think that was partly true, and we have stated that many times in a lot of our podcasts before that article was written. We thought that was the problem. When our show came out, Trade Calvin Johnson, a year ago, it's on YouTube. You can find it. It's actually when we did videos then. You can find it on there, and you can find us saying, we believe this hinders Matthew Stafford. We believe the Lions would be better by having a different option for Matthew Stafford on the outside than Calvin Johnson, a more Golden Tate, Antonio Brown type of player, more quick than fast, great route runner. And having Kyle Carter in that position, while he's probably not a great route runner and is super fast, but he's a great third down option for Matthew Stafford. And drafting him and having a good offensive line, adding Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, and emerging and improving Eric Ebron could be huge for the Lions. Jeremy Curley, and drafting a Daniel Braverman. Now that really starts to bring the offense in as a whole and giving Matthew Stafford more weapons at his disposal in an offense that's going to look a lot different than it did under Joe Lombardi. So we like, for the Detroit Lions, with the third pick in the 6th round of their 3 picks, the 210th pick overall, Kyle Carter, tight end, Penn State. With the last pick in the 7th round, the 237th pick, is a player we really fell in love with, and he's a guy that you don't hear a lot about. It's Canyon Servin, wide receiver, Virginia. He's 6'2", 210 pounds. He reminds us of Deion Branch, a big physical wide receiver, dangerous on the inside, and also has the versatility to move inside and be extremely dangerous as a inside number 3 option for the Detroit Lions. A big-bodied receiver with great hands, runs with power after the catch, doesn't allow DBs to push him around, separates out of his routes, very dangerous after the catch, explosive after the catch, and just gives, again, the Lions a lot of options. Watch his YouTube videos. All of our picks are followed with the name, the pick, and a YouTube video of that player. And at the bottom, we have other options for the Detroit Lions that we like if those players are not available. But Canyon Servin is a very productive, highly skilled wide receiver that would be coveted and getting a lot more attention if Virginia was a big-name college program, as it was a few years ago, and if they had a very talented quarterback. Poor quarterback play, poor coaching, and a whole multitude of things kind of culminated in a poor season for Servin. But this is where the Lions can pounce. I know a lot of teams and a lot of draft experts like us to take, and a lot of teams to take these project guys, high-ceiling guys. I don't. I like production. I like LeGarrette Blunts of the world. I like players that produce in college, and you can't believe they didn't get drafted, and you don't understand why. I was banging the table for LeGarrette Blount. I was banging the table for a multitude of other guys I can't remember right now that I thought about earlier, and I should have written them down, so that's my bad. But getting a guy that's been productive in college and shows a huge skill set, great catching radius, can run routes over the middle, not scared to run over the middle, very powerful after the run, great hands, understands how to get open, being able to separate from defensive backs and not allowing them to get into his body at the line of scrimmage due to the physical power he brings at the wide receiver position, is going to be huge for the Lions. It's a guy we've just fell in love with. I can't describe it, but Canyon Servin, wide receiver, Virginia, is the pick for us in round 7 for the Detroit Lions. It's the 237th pick overall. And that concludes our draft for the Detroit Lions in the 2016 season. Just to recap, some of the players we like for the Detroit Lions in our 2016 4.0 mock draft. First pick in round 1, 16th overall, is Sheldon Rankins, is who we really like, is who he's liked the whole time. We believe he fits what Bob Quinn wants. Jaron Reed could be an option there. Again, just to clarify this and to state it, Ezekiel Elliott is the best player in this draft. Ezekiel Elliott's there, which he will not be, at 16. You thank the football gods and you run to the podium. I don't care about Theo Riddick. I don't care about Zach Zenner, and I don't care about Amir Abdullah. They're all great pieces. But Ezekiel Elliott is game-changing. He's a prolific running back, and there hasn't been a running back this good come out of the draft since Adrian Peterson. You can go back to listen to all of our draft shows and listen to a lot of our shows talking about the draft 3-4 months back, and Ezekiel Elliott has been our number 1 player since day 1. We've been on the bandwagon before anybody else on his status in this draft, not his overall play. Everyone knew he's a great player, but the theme of not taking running back, how popular it's become not to get one in the first round, you can find value in other rounds. Great. You'd still take Ezekiel Elliott if you're the Detroit Lions at 16. But if he's not there, Sheldon Rankins isn't there, you trade back, acquire more picks, because as we said 1,000 times, the Detroit Lions will have an average of 10 picks with Bob Quinn as their GM every year. I believe the Detroit Lions are going to trade back. And I believe they're going to pick up more picks in this draft and next year's draft, build the core of their team through the draft. And I believe they will select Jason Spriggs when the dust settles in the 2016 draft with their first pick. Now, whether that's in the second round or the first round, don't be surprised the Lions trade back multiple times and trade out of the first round depending on what the value is. Every position, every pick has value. And if the value is not met at 16, if the player doesn't meet a 16 value, Quinn will not even hesitate to trade back, acquire more picks, acquire picks for next year to build next year's draft because they've already started scouting next year's draft. The second round pick for the Detroit Lions after Jason Spriggs and the Detroit Lions trade back like we think they will, we like Chris Jones, defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Great player, one of the more underrated players, probably the best defensive tackle in this draft. Third round pick, the comp pick for Ndamukong Suh. We like Sean Davis, a versatile safety out of the University of Maryland, can play the cornerback position, gives the Lions a lot of options. With the fourth round pick, 111th overall, Yannick Ngakoue, University of Maryland, defensive end / outside linebacker. Again, versatility, gives the Lions a lot of options, whether he can stand up, play with his hand in the dirt. A player we fell in love with during the Combine, Cyrus Jones, University of Alabama, in the 5th round, the 151st pick overall. A player we have coveted time and time again. A player that has just developed into a fast-rising, explosive weapon that can be utilized in a lot of different ways on special teams and within a defense. So we like Cyrus Jones, 5th round. With a second 5th round pick, the 169th pick overall, we like Matt Judon, defensive end, edge rusher, Grand Valley State. We like him for a multitude of reasons. Again, versatility is usually the key word for us here in this draft, and with Bob Quinn as our general manager. We like Matt Judon, defensive end, Grand Valley State, because of his versatility and his ability to play multiple positions, and his upside is worth the pick in that position. With the 6th round pick, the 191st pick overall, we like Daniel Braverman, Western Michigan, wide receiver. We need that position. We need that Wes Welker type of guy in what is going to be a different style Patriots run organization here in Detroit, and we believe he fits the need. Breaking the 7-year streak for the Detroit Lions with the 6th round pick, the 202nd overall, we like Trayvon Boykin, quarterback TCU. Again, could play the wide receiver position in certain situations, could play the 3rd string backup this year and come in as our backup next year to Matthew Stafford. I love the pick. I love the player. I think he's phenomenal. I think he'll be one of the better quarterbacks coming out of this draft in years to come. With the final 6th round pick of the 3 we have, the Detroit Lions have, not we because I'm not part of it, that the Detroit Lions have, I like Kyle Carter with the 210th pick in the 6th round, tight end, Penn State. Again, versatility, can line up inside, outside, and fills the need for the Detroit Lions. The 7th round pick, the final pick of the draft, as it stands currently, depending on trades, whatever, we don't predict that. The 237th pick overall, Canyon Servin, wide receiver, Virginia. Again, a big-bodied receiver, not in the same realm as Calvin Johnson. He's only 6'2", 210 pounds, but offers a lot of versatility. Plays inside, outside, runs great routes over the middle, great hands, great catch radius, explosive after the catch, comes in and out of routes exceptionally well, separates well. A lot of things to like about Canyon Servin, wide receiver, West Virginia. So that's our draft. That's where we're at. We will have a after the draft show where what the Detroit Lions actually do during the draft. We will evaluate each pick next week. That will be our show. So I hope everyone out there had a lot of fun with this. If you want to find our draft, you can find it on Twitter at STR Lions Talk Podcast. It's posted on there. We've sent it out to a multitude of people. So please take a look at it if you are not able to visualize who these players are. If you want to watch YouTube videos on them, please look it up there. It's also on Instagram. It's also on it's on Instagram. That's the only other place it's on. It's on Twitter and Instagram. That's the only 2 places. We thank you for joining us this week. Again, next week we will evaluate all the picks of the Detroit Lions. The draft is tomorrow. Sorry about getting the show out late. A lot of things happened. The show went a little longer than usual, but we appreciate everybody out there. Again, follow us on Twitter at STR Lions Talk. You can follow us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. Please give us a rating. I don't do it all the time, but we want you guys to, because we want to be the #1 search for Detroit Lions football. When you type it in, Detroit Lions football, it comes up, Straight Lions Talk Podcast. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for. And we can only do that with you guys. You guys have been phenomenal. Picked up 50 followers last week again. Thank you. Appreciate it. Picked up reviews. Thank you. Appreciate it. Keep doing it. Send it out to your friends, family, Lions fans, everyone you can think of that likes Detroit Lions football. And if they don't, just send it to them anyway and rub it in their face that the Detroit Lions are coming on the scene. So thank you for joining us again. Follow us on Twitter at STR Lions Talk. This was our 4.0 final mock draft for the Detroit Lions. And enjoy the draft. I know I will be watching intently pick after pick to see what the Detroit Lions do. Next week, again, we will be reviewing the Detroit Lions draft. Thank you for joining us. See you next week.